First off, if you can introduce yourself and tell us what got you into hip hop.
They call me Butterfly, because I'm butter and I'm fly. That's a new character y'all don't know about, but the ones y'all do know. And Butterfly from Tampa, by the way, and I eat them boiled peanuts. But y'all probably know me as Shock G, and some of y'all know me as Humpty Hump, the original Big Nose rapper. And some of y'all know me as the Piano Man, because I touch them keys. But today I'm Butterfly Jit, and that's what you heard me. That's what's going down now. And I'm from Tampa, Ebo City. What's up?
And what got you into hip hop way back?
Hip hop got me into hip hop. It was the thing that was going on in the streets in the late 70s when I used to live in Queens, New York, before I moved down to Tampa. I lived in Tampa even before that, but my parents got a divorce when I was about 11 years old. And from 11 through 13, I lived back in New York again. Down here, we was in the P-Funk back then, but when I got to New York, breakdancing had started. You know, graffiti. That's when I used Rackadelic was my tag. I used to go by MC Starchild because I was from Tampa, and I liked P-Funk, and Starchild was one of George Clinton's characters. So I was MC Starchild for about a couple years. When I got to New York, my MC homies up there, they was like, MC Starchild? It was like, that shit whack. You should be Shock G, because your name Greg. You should be Shock G. His name was Shah-T. Shah-T. S-H-A-H, which means king in Arabic. A lot of cats was Muslims up there, Nation of Islam, what they call 5%. 5% nation. And that was the old school way they did it. Shah meant king somebody. So in the Bronx, the popular prefix was Grandmaster. Everybody's Grandmaster something. Grandmaster Cass, Grandmaster Flash, Grandmaster Millie Mel. In Brooklyn, it was MC somebody. Everybody was MC so-and-so, MC Woody Wood, MC Shan, and then in Queens too. But in Queens Village, Far Rockaway, where I was, everybody was King somebody, Shah Born, Shah T. So they told me, you should be Shah G because you Greg. So I was like, Shah G, okay, and went and wrote all my rhymes. And then the next day I came back and I was like, I'm shocking them when I'm G'ing them, and I get paid for keeping them. They said, hold on, what you said? I said, Shock G, that's what you told me, right? It's like, nah, we said Shah G. I was like, well, fuck it, my rhymes is written already, I'm Shock G. And that's how I became Shock G, to be honest. It was an accident. Yeah. Oh, there was a few Shock G's. I mean, a few Shocks. That was a prefix in my area. So that's why I thought he said Shock. We had Shock Dell, Shock Ramazel. So I thought my cousin suggested I be Shock G. But I'm not the only Shock prefix. There's a few of those from back in the day, old school New York. But damn, I guess I'm the only Shock prefix that's in the game right now. There's not many Shocks. There's a few Shahs. Yeah. There's a lot of Grandmasters. There's a lot of MC somebodies. Not many Shock somebodies, so I got lucky. But just for the record, I wasn't the only one in Far Rockaway, Queens. You had Shock Dell, Shock Ramazel, yo. Shock your mind! So I could shock the house. You know, there's a lot of shocks was going on in the rap game, in their lyrics. So I wanted to be Shock G, you know? But right now I'm Butterfly, feel me?
So you came back to Tampa. What was the hip hop scene like when you came back?
When I first came back to Tampa from New York, there was no hip hop scene here. We used to play Love Is the Message, and me and Ronnie Ron used to laugh like, you play Love Is the Message, niggas run off the floor like rats when you turn the light on. But we was still doing it. Back then we was called the Master Blasters. It was me on turntables, I wasn't rhyming yet. Me and DJ Flame, we was the juggler, backspinner DJs. DJ Kush, Larry Kushney, was our radio DJ. He was a blend DJ. So when we wasn't rapping, he would just play the records that was on the radio and blend them out into the next. But when the MC stepped up, which was MC Ronnie Ron, MC K-Bar, occasionally I would touch the mic, not as much. But when the MCs got on, that's when I got on the turntables. Because I would play the A funky way was funky. Without the drums. If you was fly, you'd say. That was a DJ trick I caught from DJ Miz. But yeah, but when I first came to Tampa in 79, 80, hip hop wasn't here yet. And we would do it, and man, if you could find people old enough, I'm 48, if you could find cats that was between the ages of 40 and 50 around Tampa that been to the Master Blaster shows, they'll tell you that when we used to cut up Dance to Drummers Beat, every time we added a new scratch in, the dance floor would go re-crazy again. Let's dance. Oh, I lost my grills. Hold on, I gotta put my grills back in. No, fuck the grills. Yo, so, nah, but every time I said, dance floor going, let's dance, they would, ah! And it would just crank it, it would re-crank it. Dance. And MC Flame is on the mic and he's doing his thing, and Ronnie Ron, Omar, and he's doing it too, and my nigga Scooby D, he was next in the crew, and they rhyming, but I'm just, let's dance. Every time we recut it, the dance floor would go crazy, like they didn't understand what's making the beat start over and what's making it so dope. And we was explaining to them that's called backspinning. When you good times, good times. Every time you bring it back, that's a backspin. That's juggling the beat. Keep it going so the MCs can rhyme before the instrumental run out. Scratching wasn't just something niggas did to be colorful. It was a way to bring the beat back so that we can keep rhyming at a time when there was no instrumentals yet. There wasn't no rap records. Hip hop, Sugar Hill Gang hadn't come out yet. So if you was rhyming and you wanted a break, the DJ had to juggle it to keep the break long enough for him to say his 16. Because the break is only 4 bars. His rhyme is 16, 18, 30, whatever. So if all you had was, you know, just that breakdown, you had to keep the breakdown going. So then after it became popular, after Grandmaster Flash and Grandmaster Caz and Charlie Chase and DJ Hollywood, all the popular DJs in New York, after they was keeping it going, it wasn't enough to just bring it in. You had to bring it in fly. So scratching became a way of just bringing the beat in fly. If you was doing, say, more bounce to the ounce, more bounce, more bounce, more bounce. It was a way to bring it in fly so that the DJ could be fly while the MC was rhyming. It wasn't just put this record on, let it play forever, and then go all day on this turntable. To us, that was the equivalent. See, that's how they was doing it out west at first. They thought they was fly because they're fresh. This record play forever. Fresh. It wasn't fresh to us. That's the equivalent of somebody, say, doing a lot of through the legs, dribbling around the back through the legs, but he'll never take it to the hole. Just like, look at me. Yeah, but you ain't scoring no points. You just doing dribbling. Fly dribbling was a way to get around somebody, boom, to get that point. The point was more about letting the record go. Now you could, that's the dribbling. As long as it came in on time, that's the dunk. Scratching was a fly way to get to that 2 points. Not just to sit there all day, look how fast I am. All them chirp, we call them twerpers. Y'all twerp like birds. Chirp. You ain't changing the beat. You just chirp. You got to get that point. The point is when you change the beat and it didn't skip and it stayed steady so the rhymer didn't have to interrupt his rhymes, then you DJing, son. That's how it evolved. Right there.
Can you talk about meeting Kenny K?
Kenny K, okay, then after I went to California for a while. I came back and was going to HCC. I had decided that just rhyming wasn't enough, DJing wasn't enough. I wanted to know the foundation of music. So I started learning piano, I started learning jazz, blues, all the things that came before hip hop, funk, disco, backwards. Hip hop, funk, disco, R&B, rock, rock and roll, swing, jazz, blues. That's the tree. At the bottom of the tree is blues. And then branches spawned out, jazz, rock and roll, acid rock, metal, R&B, disco, funk, and then hip hop evolved further off that branch. But if you follow it all back, it all go back to blues actually. So, you know, to build a good house, you gotta be able to build a good foundation. And I felt like it would improve our records if I knew music. So I got away from hip hop a little bit, because I had that, but I got away from it and wanted to study music. So I started taking music theory and studying some piano under Patricia Trice at HCC. Kenny was a student there. And while I'm in my learning jazz period, he was walking around with headphones on, listening to, you know, Paid in Full and Africa Bambaataa every day. Me, I went through hip hop in the 70s, and so now I'm off doing this now. It's mid-80s I'm talking about now. Mid-80s, LL done came out, all the rap records done came out. You know, Curtis Blow, Sugar Hill, everything done came and went. So now we feel like we missed the wave of the first few records. We gotta know how to make our own records. So that's why I'm studying music. Me and my nigga Toby Holton, they call him T-Love, he a producer in the Bay Area, and a few other cats. We learning how to make music, not just use music, make music. And while I'm in that period, I'm always in the piano rooms, practicing on the piano, practicing. All I'm listening to is Ray Charles and Thelonious Monk and old Sly Stone records, and I'm trying to get the funk ingredients, you know? But Kenny K is walking around with African medallions on, and he always got the latest hip hop record in his headphones. And he's like, man, he ran up to me, he says, you Shock G? Man, I remember you. You from the Master Blasters. Y'all used to rock Riverfront Park back in 79 and 80. He was like, listen to this. I was like, oh, that's dope. What's that? He said, you don't know who this is? This is such and such. Whoever the latest rappers were, like EPMD or somebody. I was like, nah, I never heard of them. He was like, man, you can fool somebody else with all that jazz piano stuff, but you can't fool me. I know who you are. You Shock G. You used to rhyme. Come to find out, when we was the Master Blasters, Kenny K was a youngster in the audience, and he never forgot. So he kept trying to get me back into hip hop at HCC. And I was like, whatever, I ain't into that. I was like, listen to these blues chords right here. This that real Ray Charles, And he was like, man, why you all into that jazz nonsense? Listen to this. This Rakim. It's the new cat out right now. I was like, whoa, that's dope. And Kenny K has kept hip hop on my mind by every day running up to me. He was always beating on the tables in school. He was like, hip hop, hip hop. And he had his young crew with him, which was Scoob and you know, Scooby D and Doc P. All them cats I knew through Kenny, because Kenny was new to hip hop. So he kept trying to get me back into it. I was like, man, I don't rhyme no more. He was like, I don't know what you're doing with all that blues and jazz, but you can't fool me, Shock G. I remember who he is. Yo, you an MC. I said, not no more. Finally, one day he came to my dad's house at 4 in the morning, knocked on the window. I was like, what's going on? What time is it? You all right? You gotta hear this. I couldn't hear him through the window. I opened the window. You gotta hear this. Shh, you gonna wake my parents up. He was like, you gotta hear this. So he climbed in through the window. And it was Lottie Dottie. When he played that, well, 1 2 1 2, Slick Rick, Nuggy Fresh. I was like, damn, this is dope. Man, we sat there till the sun came up and played it about 20 times in a row. Lottie Dottie. I was like, damn, that's dope. I was like, this is how hip hop used to be. We used to curse, and we used to talk about the chicks. Because, you know, radio rap had turned me off to hip hop a little bit. Like Run DMC and Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill Gang, that was rhyming, but it had R&B people playing the records behind them, and it wasn't real hip hop to me. But when he came over with that show, Lottie Dottie record, I was like, damn, that's dope. He's like, man, I'm telling you, man, you got to get back into it. It's bubbling. I was like, all right, I'll come by. Where you at? He was like, I'm at the studio, WMNF, 88.5. We use the studio up there to record. And then we started making tapes together again. I started writing new rhymes. And if it wasn't for Kenny, I might have drifted off and become an R&B producer. But yeah, he came over and he was constantly, and he was like, you gotta hear these dudes. I was like, who's this? He said, this is PMD, remember I played for you at the school? I was like, all right. And he played me that first album. What was that first album? Strictly Business. Yeah. He was rocking that on my dad's stereo, I'll never forget. And all them records, I was like, this is how the rap used to sound. Because now, for the first time, they're using old records on the records. You know, Curtis Blow, Sugar Hill Gang, Run DMC, all them dudes, they making music in the studio, so it didn't sound familiar to me, so it didn't catch my ear. I was just like, that's some kind of hybrid between R&B and rap. That ain't hip hop. But when he started playing me Paid in Full and Strictly Business On, and X-Clan, they had the records in the records, early KRS-One. And then I was like, this I recognize. This sounds like the late 70s hip hop, them tapes we used to carry. And I said, now I know something about this. I could do this. And that's what started Digital Underground. It was the beginning of me getting back into hip hop because I felt like I had a strength because I understood using old records in the new records. That was what I knew. I didn't know how to do it like the Sugar Hill Gang was doing it, for instance. You know, we didn't have a band in the studio. I was trying to learn that in the process when Kenny derailed me and said, no, listen to these rap records. They doing it just how you used to sound when you was Master Blasters in the park. And I was like, okay. And that's when Kenny K and I started linking, and then I started listening to his radio station. And by then I was living in Oakland though. And I'd make trips back and forth. I'd come back every summer, check on Kenny. He would come out, and we made a pact that we all gonna do our thing. He gonna do it in Tampa, I'm going to Oakland, Flame going back to New York. We made a pact that whoever makes it in, reach back and pull the rest of the clique in. And so I guess the first record out of all of us to actually get pressed was a Digital Underground record. It was Your Life's a Cartoon, was the B-side. The A-side was Underwater Rhymes, I think. And Kenny came out with us. That's how he wound up on Danger Zone and Hip Hop Doll. He didn't stay out west with us because he had Levita K already. He had family obligations here in Tampa. He had the radio station. When he would be with me, he would let Eli fill in for him. Two Fly Eli from Posse Beyond Control, PBC. Later became the Dungeon Squad, signed to Hollywood Basic Records. But yeah, man, those were the days, man.